Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I am Aggelos, founder of the Dungeon Crawler Network and From the Ashes, and with me, as always, the beautiful co-founder, Thais. How are you?
Hello. Hi.
We changed up our setup from last week. Because of some echo issues, so hopefully the audio quality will be superior this week. We tried to do something different, but my mic is a little louder than hers, or my voice is a little louder than hers. I don't know how that quite goes. Right? Yeah, no.
Maybe not a little, maybe a lot.
Okay, yeah, let's just keep going with that then, sure. So yeah, first thing we're going to talk about is you did the Ashen news segment, and we were talking about all the stretch goals that Ashes of Creation is hitting constantly. We broke the 9,500 backer count, the 11 or 10K backer count, and what else was that we actually got? We got the 10K and 11K. So we got, or not 11K, 10K. There was no 10K, 11K. I'm so confused. I wrote down 10K and I'm sitting here looking at it going, that doesn't seem right. And then I realized it's just a mistype. So 11K backer, as well as unlocking the 1.75 and 2 million stretch goals. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Waiting for some feedback there.
Oh, I mean, I can give you feedback if that's what you're looking for right now, because I am really excited for Underrealm. That's what I want so much. And when I was reading the news and announcing that it was going to be bioluminescent, that really made me happy because I'm terrified of the dark. Yes, 30 years old, terrified of the dark. It's tap the desk. It's a huge problem for me. Yes, and so when I think of going underground, I think that it's going to be absolutely terrifying for me. So bioluminescence might help that a lot. Hopefully, I'm hoping, and it's going to be. I'm just really excited about that part, especially for me personally. I hope that they hit the 2.75 goal, because then we'll have the underground race to go with the
2.5.
underground.
2.5.
2.5?
Yeah.
The 2.5? Yes. That's yes.
Well, currently, as of the recording of this, which we are recording on the 21st of May, we are up to $2,222,130. So it's less than, I think it was at 278,000 to go. And actually, if you're interested, there is a website called KickTrack, which is pretty neat because it looks like at the analytics of all of the current backing. Like it records every day the amount of stuff backed, the amount of backers, and kind of gives you a projection, if you will. Now, of course, anyone who looks at projections knows that they are just that. They are projections. They're nothing that's meant to, I guess, be set in
Concrete.
stone. Yeah, because if you looked at the projection at the beginning of this, it was saying that this game was going to hit like 7 million. As of right now, the projection's looking closer to 4 or 3.4 million, based on the amount of pledges we're getting per day, the amount of money coming in, and the amount of backers. Now, anyone who,
I'm projecting 2.5 mil.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, we still have 11 days left. And based on the current pledges per day, as of yet, no, today they've already earned 34,000 in pledges. So, I mean, it moves up. Like anyone who's followed Kickstarter knows that in most cases, especially popular ones, and I'm hearkening back to Crowfall, because Crowfall is one of the, in more recent memory, Kickstarter that actually came out and got their funding in a very short amount of time. I think they did it under 24 hours. Not quite as quick as Ashes of Creation, but still very quick. And it works in what's called a reverse bell curve, because you got a lot at the beginning in the graph, and then it slows up during the middle of the month to almost nothing, just pittances, because people are watching. The people who are really going to back right at the beginning backed, well, right at the beginning, right? And then there's a lot of people still holding on, going, I'm going to wait and see. And generally in that final week, the people running the Kickstarter, Intrepid Studios at this point, are going to jump in and go, a big social media storm going, we got a week left in Kickstarter, let's hit these goals. And normally you see an increase again as it goes back up at the end. But even given the amount that we've been getting now, 34,000, probably in the next 8 days, you would hit 2.5 if it doesn't raise up in that last week. So you'd still hit that 2.5. So we should probably see that under Realm Race. So that's pretty exciting for you.
Yes, I'm hoping that they're reminiscent of the script from Guild Wars 2. That's what I'm thinking.
I know those of us in Dungeon Crawler Network Discord, we were talking about this ourselves and saying like, having the conversation about the difference between a demon-esque race and a beast race. And, they were trying to make the argument that, technically demons have like bull horns. And I'm like, well, I guess that looks at what kind of demon you're looking at in most cases, whether or not it's a typical demon like a Balrog or, whatever the case is. Even Balrogs, only the Peter Jackson version had horns, but, those, I don't count those as bestial features. I'm actually leaning closer to what you think, Thais, as in either a rat race or a lizard race. More so than a demon race, because all we saw from the picture was a humanoid form with a tail.
I'm not thinking anything towards a demon race. Not at all. Not with how thin the tail looked. When I think demon, I think thick tail towards the butt and then thinning out to a point. That's what I think when I think demon tail.
Right.
The tail in the picture, again, just speculation to me, looks like it's a thin tail, as if it would be rat-like, mouse-like, or monkey-like.
Yeah, monkey-like could be something too, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
especially with how hunched over it looked in the picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which I'm hoping it's not monkeys, because I kind of don't like monkeys. I'm a monkey hater.
Racial attack, throws poo at people.
That would be a great attack.
Yeah, unique to that race. There you go. There's your racial.
So gross.
I know, right? So there was that. Now, we are also talking about, we wanted to get into our pillars of creation, and the big thing we wanted to talk about for this episode, and obviously we're only on episode 2, technically 4 if you count the Q&As that are part of the RSS feed, but I really don't count those. Those are like special episodes, not, fully done out podcast episodes. But the thing we want to do for Pillars of Creation is we wanted to speculate. So anyone who's watching this, please note that this is 100% speculation on our part. There's hints and stuff being thrown at us from Intrepid and those over there. But what we're trying to think of now is, for the fun of it, is what this is going to mean. And the thing we wanted to talk about was social.
We're voicing our hopes.
There you go. Hopes or something. That's a nice way of putting it, other than the tinfoil hat theory that I was going to say. But social organizations. That was a stretch goal that we hit at, I think it was 2 million. Yes. 2 million was the added social progression pass of Thieves Guild, Scholars Academy, and the Traders Company. We did ask during our Q&A about Thieves Guild, and this was something we asked whether or not stealing was a thing. Well, it's not in terms of player, and I don't think we're going to see anything along the lines of like ESO related stealing, like you could just pick from anything. I have a feeling the Thieves Guild will have quests that have you go in and steal an object, similar to Thieves Guild in the main series of Elder Scrolls. But again, you're stealing it, you turn it in, just like any other quest. You got to go in, get it, and come back out. But you're not going to be able just to steal anything anymore. So the big question that we had for these progression paths, how are they going to affect the world? You only get to pick one. You progress through one and you get your standing up in one, and then you can switch, but you'll lose progression. Thais, go ahead.
That's really difficult for me, because I love the idea of the Thieves Guild, but I also love the idea of the Scholars Academy. I will not even go near the Traders Company. No, not for me. Not ugh, gross. The Thieves Guild and the Scholars Academy, they both pull me in those directions. When I think of the Thieves Guild off of what the little that we know, I definitely hope that they do something like some of my favorite RPGs where the quest you have to sneak around in a compound and steal some object of value. You have to avoid detection. You have to maybe kill people without being heard, without being seen. I think of crouching, just your typical solid snake stuff is definitely what I think of. And then with the Scholars Academy, I'm actually not sure what I picture when I think of the Scholars Academy in terms of quests, in terms of how it will affect the world. Thieves Guild is easy to think about how it could affect the world. Scholars Academy for me isn't. Like, do you have any thoughts on it?
I do, actually. You made some interesting point. Thieves Guild is pretty straightforward. Like, the things you're
Hmm.
going to be doing is you're going to be stealing stuff, and you'll be earning reputation within the Thieves Guild. Now, the thing that we'll have to come back and circle around for is its effect on the world, which we'll do that first. Let's go ahead and hit up like quest related stuff, and then we'll circle around for effect on node progression and things of that nature. So Thieves Guild questing is fairly simple. Scholars Guild, though, remember the thing that we don't know a lot about: lore. Remember that Stephen has said multiple times that the idea is as these servers progress, we'll be learning more about the world because we were the original well, I shouldn't say original. Originated, our ancestors originated from this world that we are now going into, right? Some catastrophe happened. We don't know what. Probably has something to do with that corruption because we see that fairly often in several different aspects. But something happened to the world where through these divine gateways, the different deities of the world provided an escape for our ancestors. Our ancestors fled the world and are gone, right? Now, millennia later, right? Because the world has been without, at least the surface has been without any form of
Civilization?
civilization for an unknown amount of time, and we are now being brought back through the gates to find old civilization. Because so people aren't here anymore, but remnants of the cities that they created might be. Because I mean, obviously over time, thousands of years, hundreds of years, or however long the time period is we were gone, any civilization probably went down into nothing, right? Or ruins and things of that nature. But there's probably still remnants of it out there. I'm thinking what the Scholars Academy is going to be learning about past history, going into possibly dungeons, ancient ruins that existed in the world before the whatever the cataclysm was that forced us away, and trying to learn about the history of the world. I think that's what the quest will probably be more related to. No?
Okay. And I honestly, I meant to say actually, I actually see that leaning more towards nodes that are scientific
Okay.
than nodes that would be anything else. That's a really good point. That would be really interesting. If that is actually how it is, I think that I would join the Scholars Academy over the Thieves Guild because lore and knowledge, game knowledge, to me is a lot of fun to know. Definitely to you too, since you're kind of a huge lore nut.
I've been pestering Steven for weeks to give us lore. I think one of the first interactions I even had with him was like, "So where's the lore, dude? Like, I want to know lore because story is very important to me." I mean, obviously, one of the other games that we cover is the Elder Scrolls Online, and what attracted me so much to that world was the in-depth lore. And my favorite books are Lord of the Rings because of how in-depth the lore actually is of the entire. I shouldn't say Lord of the Rings. I say that as the Middle Earth saga is my favorite. So, I mean, I love these in-depth lore that comes with games, and when the lore is not there, I lose a lot of interest in a game because I like to know there's history.
They seem to be expanding the game and making it so that there's going to be lore every corner you turn. especially with the game that looks to be as big as this, there's going to be lore everywhere.
Well, not only that, but they actually said, and this is something that's really fascinating, is the way they're doing lore is they already everything in this game is already predetermined, right? How the path actually, I think one of the best descriptions I think I've ever seen was imagine a choose your adventure book. The book's already written, but depending on the players determines what page you're landing on, right? So like while you're sitting here going, okay, I'm on X page or whatever. Oh, do I go through the dungeon or don't I? And you're like, yes, I do. One server may say, no, I'm not. And changing the way the lore, I shouldn't say changing the way the lore, but changing what they know about the lore because they didn't go into the dungeon, they don't know about this secret cult that's been around since the cataclysm that brought it forward, right? But the server that did knows this, all right? So there will be people, I imagine there being like an official lore forum eventually where people will be discussing different server paths and where the world has went, oh, you uncovered this? Oh, we didn't uncover that. We uncovered this to find the greater meta picture of what the lore actually is. And I think that's actually really fascinating.
So in my head, I'm thinking about the ways that these social organizations will affect the different types of nodes that are going to be in the cities. And as we know, the nodes that the types of nodes there are would be scientific, military, economic, and religious.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I would picture the Thieves Guild affecting nodes that are economic, militaristic, and religious, leaving out scientific. Because to me, I don't see how a Thieves Guild would play into a scientific node at all, a city area that wouldn't make any sense to me. For the Scholars Academy, I would see that having something to play in scientific, religious, and military. And then for the Traders Forum, Traders,
Company.
what's the word? Company, thank you. For the Traders Company, I would see that leaving out religious altogether.
Okay. All right. So, and that's we'll go right into Traders Company. Traders Company to me, it's going to revolve completely around commerce,
Boring.
quests that are going to involve the trade packs, the economic node structure, and that kind of thing. That I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? It's just like Thieves Guild. It's pretty obvious. But now that we've seen that, going back talking about how they're going to affect the world, I mean, because here you have these social paths, and the idea of these social paths are ways to, I want to say, segregate the community into smaller meta groups. So,
It
like,
it will wholly be factionless, but not quite. These
it,
are essentially factions.
yeah, it's because you're choosing, I guess, not at the start, and you can change your faction. Like, you can start in the Thieves Guild. You get all the way to top if you want it, and then go, yeah, I want to do something else. And then you just lose your progression in the Thieves Guild and replace it with whatever else you're trying to level. So there is that. But I mean, the thing that's I'm really interested in, how do these affect node structure in terms of outside just the normal experience? Like, what do they give? Does in the Thieves Guild, like if I'm running for office in an economic form, do I get like a discount because I'm part of the Thieves Guild? Like, am I allowed to like grease some palms or something like that to get like fake votes? Like I don't know, like how, because in certain, it's interesting because how they run for player governance in the different nodes depends entirely based on what kind of node it is. If it's economic, it's completely an elite oligarchy. So you can buy your way in if you have enough money. Think the thing that makes me think closest to it is in Game of Thrones, the city of Karth with the 13. They're like the richest merchants in Karth. That's the elite oligarch. They rule because they have the most money. Um,
So
mili-
then a city, sorry, so then a city that's economic with a large Thieves Guild presence would be, oh wow, that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Everybody trying to, without the possibility, without the option of actually stealing from people, but there'd be shady politicians and Walmart would be the only place to shop.
well, with Thieves Guild, if the quests require you to be in an economic node because obviously there's more commerce going on, more money flowing through hands, easier to steal. It's a lot easier to steal there than it would be in, say, a military camp where how often do soldiers have money anyway? Like whenever they're paid, then they use that, they send it off to families or by prostitutes or whatever soldiers do at this point in time. If you believe any of the shows like Spartacus or anything like that, they blow it on hookers and wine in like 10 seconds after they're paid. So
Are there any brothels in this
I
game?
don't think
We'll
so.
we'll never see you in any gameplay again.
I know. See, that's how The Witcher killed me. Is that's all it was, gambling and brothels. But they do have tavern games, so
So we'll
might
still never see you.
there's a good chance of that. So yeah, that's the thing I'm really curious about, whether or not the Thieves Guild, what does it get me? Like I know obviously they're talking about augmenting skills, like being able to have various augments similar to how subclassing would do. Like when you have a secondary class and it augments your primary abilities, they were talking about having possibly augments or passives from these. But again, what do they get me? That's the
we
thing I'm not really sure about.
I think we were talking about this before, and when I thought of augmenting a skill with the Traders Company, it made me think of Yojimbo from Final Fantasy X. How you toss money at him, and that's what happens, how much he attacks. So when I think of being a member of the Traders Company and attacking somebody, I think of stab. Oh, let me pay you some money. Can you die for me?
Uh, well, that was a weird analogy. I'm not gonna. Can you? Here's some money. Go die.
Okay, well, okay, here's some money. Can you pretend to be dead? Say that you are
You mean
dead for
paying
me.
off somebody?
Thank you. Yes, just yeah, that.
Okay. You know, okay. Well, I mean, that might be, I guess, something. The only other
That's the only
thing,
possibility I think of with the Traders Company.
no. What about trade routes? Because here's the thing: when you're with crafting materials, a player can only carry so much. You have to actually load stuff onto trade caravans and trade them between cities. What if there's a tariff when you bring your goods in? Say you have, let's just say, 100 iron. You're taking it in, but the city goes, listen, you brought it in, great, but you have to pay the tax for selling it. You brought in 100 iron, we'll say it's a gold a piece just for simple numbers. Here's 100 gold, but there's a 20% tax, so you owe us 20 gold. Maybe if you're part of the traders company, you get a discount. You only have to pay 10%, so it's 10%. The higher you are in that. And that, that kind of thing would be interesting for trades. Like that's what would make some people maybe want to go through the traders company if they are very heavily built on the economic side of the game and running trade routes. Maybe traders companies where they go because of a passive buff that lowers tariff cost, or because player governance can decide what the tax rate is in a given area. Maybe the traders company can augment that a little bit and change how you're taxed for various services because you're part of this traders company.
There would be a lot of people going into the Traders Company then, if that's the kind of passives that they give. Because especially in a game like this, where they're trying to make it so that being a gatherer, being a crafter, being a smelter is something that you need to do, there would be a lot of people in that faction to make sure that they have the means to move from city to city and route to route.
But not everyone's interested in that meta topic because they did say that people would be able to take care of themselves. They'd be able to carry enough to take care of themselves. But if you really wanted to sell or anything like that, you have to engage in the trade routes. It all depends on the balance between these three sections. Like, what do they provide? That's something just right off the top of my head that I think that the traders company would be able to provide, and therefore, hey, this is awesome. We're good. Thanks a lot. See you later. But if you're not
What
actively participating in trade runs, maybe one of the other two, but it depends on what it is. Scholars Academy, maybe their passive is I don't know, bonus experience. You know, oh, okay,
Oh,
you get
wow.
a 15% reduction in taxes, or whatever the case may be. Maybe you get a 15% increase in experience if you are Scholars Academy. Maybe Thieves Guild, you get a pickpocket passive where it's 15% more gold dropped from monsters. I mean, there's different passives if they're going the passive route that you could do. Maybe those two aren't as attractive. That's just me throwing out ideas. But I mean, Traders Company seems fairly obvious about what they
Obvious.
could do. Yeah, it's the other two that I'm sitting there going, well, and even Scholars Academy. I shouldn't say this because we don't know how much experience is going to be useful, especially once you are quote unquote max level, right? Like earning experience contributes to the nodes, and maybe Scholars Academy helps you level nodes faster, which is awesome, right? Especially if your guild's trying to help, capture or take a node. Maybe Scholars Academy is the way to go, but
I just had a thought that depending on what type of node an area, or yeah, what type of node an area has, a city has, and then what kind of presence one of the social organizations is there, whichever ones would match more, which I'm trying to put it into words. There's four different types, three different organizations. Whichever one would match more would have more of a bonus to that specific type. So, say the Scholars Guild has a huge presence in a scientific city, then whatever they have to offer would be a bigger bonus as opposed to, say, a Scholars Academy in a node that's militaristic. So,
yeah.
whatever passive they could possibly have, whatever thing would be helpful for the people, there would be a bigger bonus in that area.
No, it makes sense. It does. And that would maybe sway people's decision because, again, nodes are preset, right? Like, you don't really know what a node is going to be until you start leveling it up. And it'll be evident fairly quickly based on the amount of NPCs. Like, let's just say you're in an area, there's no node, and then all of a sudden you're leveling and a camp shows up, but it's all soldiers. Well, then that's a military node, right?
Oh, really? You can't
Yes.
choose that.
No,
Oh,
no. So you could be leveling a node and go, oh, like soldiers show up. Now,
so so in all servers, town A is military.
I don't want to say that because we don't know that for sure. What we
Okay.
do know is that players do not have a choice in what type of node it is. Okay. So maybe it's a lottery system like an RNG. When the node goes, it's like you got 1 in 4 shot, and depending on what NPCs show up, is what the node is. That might only be
Ah,
till the next reset. That might be permanent. That might be the same across all servers. We don't really know. But while leveling, you go, man, I really wish this was a scientific node because we, as a guild, we want a scientific node. But then you're as you're leveling up and you see priest, you're like, this is a religious node. And I mean, and the thing is, the type of node that you're leveling up, there's a reason why you want to do these nodes, and it's specifically for the type of governance, because each one has a different way of electing its leaders. Scientific nodes are a pure democracy; it's a vote system. The economic nodes is the elite oligarchy. So you can buy your way in. So whoever has the most amount of money can buy it. Not only that, but you can also then sell your term later on if you really wanted to. It's just like how you want to do it. And then military is obviously for the PvP nuts. It's last man standing is the ruler, right? And what was the last? Oh, divine. The divine one, the religious or divine. I think it's divine is what they call it, but regardless, it's the same thing. Is actually what you would, if you were looking to do that one, it's actually based on the amount of service-based quests that you're doing. So, like, while you're in these zones, they're going to offer you quests to go out and help the needy, so to speak. And your reputation is completely based upon how much you help the needy, right? Like, so if you're helping the needy, you're actually going to get a higher ranking. So when it comes time to pick the new leader, it's kind of like, okay, I don't know if it'll be a vote like Cardinals in the Pope or anything like that, or if it'll just be who did the most quests. That's how they determine the leader in a divine node.
I see a large Thieves Guild presence in a divine city would have no bonus. That would just be very, very hectic.
Well, I mean, at that point in time, a, a thief would not have quite the standing in that node because depending on the religion, of course. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of time, most religions don't favor wealth, right? So it's always giving to the church. The church will have their stuff and go from there. But there's no way for a thief to rise in social standing because, I mean, stealing in most places is a sin, right? Like most religions,
Unless you're Robin Hood.
no, it's still a sin, regardless of how you do it. That's there's a difference between the moral standing and the legal definition, right? If you're still stealing from something that's not lawfully yours, regardless of what you do with it, you're still stealing, right? So yeah, it doesn't matter. You rob a bank and then give it to an orphanage, it's still dirty money, right? Like that's just how it is. So I don't see the Thieves Guild, like you said, if you have a Thieves Guild, maybe a divine node isn't where you won't get the best bonuses there because who's going to trust a thief anyway? It is what it is. So, I guess that's kind of. Did you have any other further notes before we hop into our mailbag?
No, no, I got it all out. I'm good.
All right, so that was just a little bit of theorycraft, and we're going to come back with some more of that as development goes on, talking about different news things. But that I thought that would be a fun one to talk about this week. Now we did actually have a mailbag. If you're interested in sending us mail, dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There's a contact page on the top of our website. You can simply drop down the list and select the podcast from the Ashes and send us a message, and we'll get that. But we had a couple people send us messages with a couple questions, and I kind of want to look at a few of them. And one of them is actually from our very own Arcaneer in the Dungeon Crawler Network. He's actually one of my co-hosts on another podcast, and he's been looking at Ashes of Creation, but he's not really an MMO player. So he goes, you know how in the Elder Scrolls Online there are things a casual or a non-MMORPG player like myself can still do and enjoy the game, like dungeons having different difficulty levels, level scaling, or so much soloable content that you don't really need a group for, or simply exploring the world, finding out interest points, reading books and notes around these points, and diving into lore. Do you think Ashes of Creation will have stuff for casual players as well, or is it a more hardcore or go home type of game? Do you want to tackle that one first? Because I already have my thoughts, but would you rather play off mine?
Well, my thought is I'm kind of right on board with him. I'm hoping there's going to be enough for single players to do because I honestly don't have the time anymore to do huge group content. And I know that when my time comes for me to be able to sit down and really play, it'll either be with you or by myself. So I know that I am also hoping that there will be content for me to do by myself or just two players or things that won't take me to areas that need large groups, or maybe will I be able to farm mats and stuff where I won't die because the area is so heavily populated by other players or high level monsters. That's a legitimate concern,
Right.
for me.
And I will say this. The thing that made me think about this is every player is useful. I mean, looking at Game of Thrones as an instance I used earlier, not everyone plays the Game of Thrones. There are the simple people who just go through their day-to-day life and don't really care what game the High Lords play. They just want to do their daily stuff. There will be room for casual players and like you said, the non-MMORPG type players to get in there and do things. Like, because anything you do is going to contribute to the node that you're a citizen of, right? Whether it's just going out and farming, doing quests, whatever the case may be. You don't have to be part of the larger meta groups to affect what the outcome is. So there will be things to do. They did say there would be sellable. They actually even said that even a level 1 by themselves could technically explore the entire world, but it would be difficult because of how they set up the world, that as you move farther away from a node, the outskirts are more dangerous than the inside. So like the inside is like level 1, but as you get further and further away from civilization, the level goes up. So you're going to be having to pick and choose where you're going. And with that, it's kind of neat because it also brings back that element of the entire world is used now. Not all the high-end players are off in just one zone, and that's the only place they actually appear. They will actually be everywhere because look at it. I mean, the players are going to be everywhere because you'll see low levels in there trying to do quest and task and things like that. And then you'll see high levels going over to that dark tower up on the hill that you don't go anywhere near because of all these like high level monsters around it, which is really neat. No, I do think there will be things for casual players. It's just pick what you like doing and do it. I mean, Dungeon Crawler Network is a community focused guild. We like doing stuff like this, and we will have things for multiple people. We have been doing it in Elder Scrolls Online. We'll do it in Ashes of Creation, where we will have different events for different amount of people. Do you like doing trade runs when you get in? Great. Do you like farming stuff? Great. You know, do you want to go do arena PvP or whatever the case may be? I mean, I guess you really wouldn't want to PK too much unless you really like corruption, but there will be things to do. Like even if you just like questing, well, head to your nearest religious node and do things for the gods, right? Because they always need stuff. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. It is an MMO. There will be MMO traits, but it doesn't necessarily mean if you only have so much time to actually play in a day, you're still contributing. You just maybe not as much as some people, and you don't need to be part of the ongoing Game of Thrones and Node Wars to still participate in them or be killed by them if you happen to walk into a city that's under siege. All right. We had a few more questions, but I'm actually going to save them because I like to keep these segments short. We're nearing the 40-minute mark on this segment, which is a little longer than I'd like to go for these segments, but that's okay. It was a fun time. Thais, you want to give a final thought?
Final thought. After this discussion, I think I've narrowed it down to joining the Scholars Academy.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, again, that was our tinfoil hat speculation. As we get into the game and learn more about it, maybe our thoughts aren't right. But it'd be kind of fun to go back to this episode after we know and see what our speculations were. And I mean, this is actually a lot of the fun part of the early steps when we know so little is the theorizing about what's it going to be like. All right, well, this is episode 2 of From the Ashes. This is our Pillars of Creation segment. Thank you so much. We will be back with our next segment. Check the description below. Find out what all we've done yet for this episode, and we will see you next time. Bye.